The Amish have a way of bringing soil back from the dead without touching a single chemical. Their old world methods breathe life into fields most people would give up on, turning dry, lifeless dirt into rich, fertile ground. These time-tested tricks not only restore the earth, but also keep it thriving year after year. The Amish figured out something pretty clever about their horses long before anyone started talking about soil science. These draft horses don't just pull equipment around the farm, they're actually helping fix dead dirt with every step they take. While modern farmers drive heavy tractors that squash the life out of soil, Amish horses do the opposite. When horses walk across hard ground, their hooves work like natural hammers. Each step breaks up the packed dirt that stops water and air from getting down to where plant roots need it. The weight of a horse spreads out differently than a tractor tire. A big machine presses down with tons of pressure that turns soil into something like concrete. But horse hooves punch small holes that let the ground breathe again. Horses are basically four-legged soil therapists who work for hay. Amish farmers often let their horses stomp around on fields that haven't been planted yet. It looks like the animals are just wandering around, but they're actually doing serious work underground. Every hoof print creates tiny air pockets that help water soak in better. This trampling method works so well that some fields get more aeration from horse hooves than they would from expensive tilling machines. The timing matters too. Amish farmers know exactly when the soil is ready for this horse treatment. Too wet, and the hooves will make the problem worse. Too dry, and nothing happens. But when conditions are just right, those horses turn into four-legged soil doctors. The animals seem to know where to step, almost like they can sense which spots need the most help. Tractors may be faster, but horses are the only machines that improve the soil while walking on it. What makes this even better is that horses don't need fuel, oil changes, or repair shops. They eat grass, drop fertilizer while they work, and never break down during busy season. Modern soil experts are starting to realize that these old Amish methods might actually be more advanced than the fancy equipment they've been using. Sometimes the best technology has four legs and eats oats. The horse-powered approach creates healthier soil while costing nothing but hay and patience. But horses aren't the only animals helping heal dead ground on Amish farms. There's another barnyard trick that turns waste into liquid gold. Most people think tea comes from fancy leaves and tiny bags, but Amish farmers brew something completely different in their barnyards. This liquid fertilizer starts with fresh manure soaking in water for days or weeks until it becomes a nutrient-rich drink that plants absolutely love. The smell might make visitors run away, but sick soil drinks it up like medicine that actually works. Making barnyard tea is simpler than brewing coffee. Farmers fill old barrels with water, dump in fresh cow or horse manure, and let nature do the mixing. After a few weeks of fermenting in the sun, this smelly soup gets strained and sprayed directly onto struggling fields. The liquid carries all the good stuff from manure, but works faster than throwing solid chunks around the farm. Plants respond to barnyard tea like they've been given energy drinks. Corn stalks that were pale yellow turn deep green within days. Weak vegetable plants suddenly start growing like they're in some kind of race. The liquid nutrients get absorbed through leaves and roots almost immediately, which is why Amish farmers use this trick when regular composting takes too long. Barnyard tea proves that the best plant medicine comes with the worst smell. The science behind this smelly solution makes perfect sense. Fresh manure contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the three main nutrients that plants need to survive. When these elements dissolve in water, they become available to plants much faster than waiting for solid manure to break down naturally. It's like the difference between swallowing a vitamin pill versus getting nutrients through an IV drip. Different animals produce different strength tea. Chicken manure creates the strongest brew because chickens pack more nitrogen into their waste than larger animals. Cow manure makes a gentler tea that works well for delicate plants. Horse manure falls somewhere in between, giving steady nutrition without burning tender roots. Some Amish farmers have learned to blend different animal teas to create custom mixtures for specific crops. Plants love barnyard tea so much they probably wish farmers would serve it in fancy china cups. The whole process might seem gross to city folks, but plants don't care about the smell when they're getting exactly what they need to thrive. Barnyard tea proves that the best fertilizers come from the farm itself, not from expensive bags at the store. While liquid fertilizer works fast, there's another Amish method that takes a completely different approach to feeding tired soil. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. Smart Amish farmers never let their fields get stuck in boring relationships with the same crops year after year. Instead of the typical corn and soybeans dance that most modern farms do, these communities rotate through oats, buckwheat, millet, and other plants that most people have never heard of. Each crop brings different skills to the soil party, fixing problems that the previous plant might have created. Buckwheat deserves special attention because it's basically a soil therapist with seeds. The roots of this plant work like tiny crowbars, breaking up hard ground that other crops can't penetrate. While buckwheat is busy loosening compacted dirt, it's also pulling phosphorus from deep underground and making it available for whatever gets planted next season. The whole plant acts like a living soil conditioner that works for free. These lesser-known crops solve problems that corn and soybeans create. Continuous corn planting sucks specific nutrients from soil and invites particular bugs and diseases to move in permanently. But when farmers throw buckwheat or millet into the rotation, these new plants confuse pests and diseases that were getting too comfortable. It's like changing the locks on the house every few years to keep unwanted visitors away. Crop rotation is basically speed dating for soil. Different plants every year keep things interesting. The timing of rotations follows patterns that Amish communities have perfected over generations. Heavy feeders like corn get planted after soil-building crops like clover have spent a year pumping nutrients into the ground. Light feeders like oats come next, taking just enough nutrients without depleting the soil bank account. Then cover crops get planted to rebuild what was used up, starting the whole cycle over again. Oats bring their own special talents to this rotation party. These grains grow fast and thick, crowding out weeds that try to steal nutrients from the soil. When oats get harvested, they leave behind root systems that break down quickly and feed beneficial bacteria underground. The leftover straw becomes mulch that protects the soil surface from wind and rain erosion. Weeds hate oat fields because there's no room at the end. Modern agriculture has mostly forgotten about millet, but Amish farmers still appreciate what this ancient grain can do for tired soil. Millet roots grow deeper than most crops, mining minerals from underground layers that haven't been touched in years. When the plant dies and decomposes, those deep-mined nutrients get recycled back to the surface where future crops can use them. The rotation system works because different plants take different things from soil while giving back their own unique contributions. Speaking of deep roots, there are some plants that make millet look shallow when it comes to underground mining operations. Underground mining operations happen every day on Amish farms, but the miners wear leaves instead of hard hats. Alfalfa and clover plants send their roots down 3 to 6 feet below the surface, exploring soil layers that most crops never reach. These deep-diving plants work like living elevators, bringing buried treasure back up to where other plants can use it. The root systems of these healing plants make regular crops look lazy by comparison. While corn roots might go down 2 feet and call it quits, alfalfa keeps digging until it hits groundwater or solid rock. Along the way, these roots discover pockets of calcium, magnesium, and trace minerals that have been locked away for decades. The plants pull these nutrients up through their stems and store them in leaves that eventually return to the soil surface. When Amish farmers plow these deep-rooted crops back into the ground, magic happens in the topsoil. All those minerals that were trapped in underground vaults suddenly become available to shallow-rooted vegetables and grains. Dead topsoil that couldn't grow decent weeds transforms into rich ground that produces bumper crops. The healing happens from the bottom up, like giving the earth a vitamin injection from 6 feet down. Alfalfa roots make regular crops look like they're afraid of commitment to the soil. Clover brings extra benefits because it works with bacteria that live in little bumps on its roots. These bacteria grab nitrogen right out of the air and turn it into plant food. Every acre of clover can manufacture hundreds of pounds of natural fertilizer while the crop is growing. When the clover gets plowed under, all that nitrogen becomes available to whatever gets planted next season. The Amish learn to read signs that tell them when deep root healers have done their job. Soil that was hard as concrete starts crumbling in their hands. Water that used to run off fields starts soaking deeper. Plants that struggled to survive suddenly grow thick and green. The whole process takes patience because root healing works slowly, but the results last for years after the healing plants are gone. Deep-rooted plants are basically soil miners who work for free and never go on strike. Smart farmers plant these root healers strategically around their farms. Fields that have been beaten up by years of corn production get prescribed a 3-year treatment of alfalfa. Ground that floods every spring gets clover therapy to improve water absorption. Even small patches of poor soil get doses of deep-rooted medicine that gradually brings the dirt back to life. The investment in healing plants pays dividends for decades as soil structure improves from the bottom up. But what happens when soil is so compacted that even deep roots can't break through? That's where natural minerals come to the rescue. Heavy clay soil turns Amish farms into concrete parking lots during dry weather and muddy swamps when it rains. So these farmers fight back with crushed gypsum and coarse sand. These natural minerals work like tiny wedges, prying apart clay particles that have been stuck together tighter than superglue. The treatment doesn't happen overnight, but it beats waiting decades for clay to fix itself naturally. Gypsum comes from ancient seabeds where calcium and sulfur got compressed into rock over millions of years. When Amish farmers spread crushed gypsum across their clay fields, something interesting happens at the microscopic level. Clay particles carry negative electrical charges that make them stick together like magnets. Gypsum releases calcium ions that neutralize these charges, causing the clay particles to let go of each other and form larger clumps with spaces in between. Sand works differently, but achieves similar results. Coarse sand particles act like ball bearings between clay chunks, creating physical spaces for water and air to move through. The key is using the right kind of sand, not the fine stuff from beaches that just makes clay problems worse, but chunky sand with particles big enough to wedge clay apart permanently. Clay soil has serious attachment issues that only gypsum therapy can fix. The timing of these treatments matters more than most farmers realize. Applying gypsum to wet clay just creates expensive mud that doesn't improve anything. But spread on dry clay just before rain season, gypsum gets dissolved and carried down through the soil profile where it can work on compaction problems several inches below the surface. The effects compound over time as more gypsum treatments gradually transform concrete hard clay into workable soil. Amish communities often combine gypsum and sand treatments for stubborn clay problems. The gypsum handles the chemical side by changing how clay particles behave, while sand provides physical structure that keeps improvements permanent. Some farmers add compost to the mix, creating a 3-way attack on clay compaction that works faster than any single treatment alone. Sand and gypsum make the perfect clay-busting team. One provides the muscle, the other provides the chemistry. Old-timers in Amish communities remember when these clay-breaking methods were the only options available. Before chemical soil conditioners existed, farmers had to rely on gypsum deposits they could find locally and sand from nearby creek beds. Modern agriculture rediscovered these ancient techniques when chemical treatments became expensive and sometimes made soil problems worse instead of better. The natural approach works slower but creates lasting improvements that don't need constant reapplication. While gypsum and sand fix clay problems, there's another soil builder sitting right in the barn that most people would never think to use. Every Amish barn produces a valuable crop that never gets planted, but feeds the soil better than most fertilizers money can buy. The mixture of straw bedding and animal manure that accumulates throughout the year becomes a slow-release nutrition system that keeps giving nutrients to plants for months after it gets spread on fields. This barnyard gold costs nothing to produce and works better than expensive commercial soil amendments. The magic happens in the bedding mixture, where carbon-rich straw teams up with nitrogen-packed manure to create the perfect food for soil bacteria. Fresh manure alone burns plants because it contains too much nitrogen in forms that roots can't handle. But when manure mixes with straw bedding for months, beneficial bacteria break down the hot nitrogen into gentler forms that plants can actually use without getting chemical burns. Straw brings its own benefits to this barnyard partnership. The hollow stems trap air pockets that help soil breathe better while slowly decomposing into organic matter that improves soil structure. Unlike fresh manure that disappears quickly, straw manure mixtures release nutrients gradually over entire growing seasons. Plants get steady nutrition instead of feast or famine feeding cycles that stress their root systems. Straw and manure make the perfect farming couple. One brings structure, the other brings nutrition. Amish farmers have learned to read their bedding piles like recipe ingredients. Too much manure and not enough straw create smelly, nitrogen-heavy mixtures that burn plants. Too much straw without enough manure produces carbon-heavy compost that ties up soil nitrogen instead of releasing it. The perfect ratio comes from practical experience, usually about 3 parts straw to 1 part manure by volume. Different animals produce different quality bedding mixtures. Horse bedding tends to be the most balanced because horses waste less feed than cows, creating cleaner straw-manure ratios. Chicken coop bedding packs more nitrogen punch, but needs careful handling to avoid burning sensitive plants. Pig bedding often contains more moisture, which speeds up decomposition but requires better drainage when applied to fields. Horse bedding is the gold standard of barnyard mixtures, clean, balanced, and ready to work. The application timing makes huge differences in results. Bedding spread in fall has all winter to break down and mellow before spring planting. Fresh bedding applied right before planting can actually harm germinating seeds. Experienced Amish farmers test their bedding by grabbing handfuls and checking the smell. Sweet, earthy odors mean the mixture is ready, while sharp ammonia smells indicate it needs more time to age properly. But barnyard bedding isn't the only unexpected soil helper on Amish farms. There are plants growing wild that actually improve the ground they're growing in. Most farmers spend fortunes trying to kill dandelions and plantain, but smart Amish communities let these so-called weeds work for free as underground mining crews. The deep taproots of these wild plants drill down through hardpan layers that crop roots can't penetrate, bringing up minerals from soil depths that have been locked away for years. When these weeds finally get mowed or plowed under, they deposit their mineral treasures right where garden vegetables can use them. Dandelions deserve metals instead of herbicide treatments because their taproots can punch through soil layers harder than concrete. These yellow-flowered miners send roots down 4 feet or more, exploring underground territory that corn and beans never reach. Along the way, dandelion roots collect calcium, potassium, and trace minerals that get stored in their leaves throughout the growing season. The timing of when to harvest these wild soil fixers matters more than most people realize. Early spring dandelions contain the highest concentrations of minerals because the plants have spent all winter storing nutrients in their roots. When Amish farmers mow these weeds before they go to seed, all those collected minerals get returned to the soil surface where shallow-rooted crops can benefit from the underground mining operation. Dandelions are basically unpaid employees who mine minerals and never ask for overtime pay. Plantain brings different skills to the wild plant workforce. These broadleafed weeds specialize in improving soil structure rather than just mining minerals. Plantain roots create channels in compacted ground while their thick leaves shade the soil surface, keeping moisture from evaporating during hot summer months. When plantain plants die back in fall, their decomposing roots leave behind tunnels that help water and air reach deeper soil layers. Even common weeds like lamb's quarters and pigweed earn their keep in Amish farming systems. Lamb's quarters accumulate nitrogen in their leaves, while their roots help break up soil crusts that form after heavy rains. Pigweed develops extensive root networks that improve soil drainage in wet areas where crops might otherwise drown. Weeds are just plants with impressive work ethic and terrible public relations. The key to managing these wild soil fixers is knowing when to let them work and when to stop them from taking over completely. Amish farmers allow beneficial weeds to grow in field corners and fence rows where they won't compete with crops but can still do their underground mining work. Strategic mowing keeps the weeds from spreading seeds while returning their mineral wealth to the soil bank account. While weeds work underground, there's another soil treasure hiding right at the edge of every forest that most farmers completely overlook. Nature's composting system works overtime in the woods, where fallen leaves transform into black gold that holds water better than expensive peat moss. Amish farmers discovered this forest treasure decades ago and learned to harness the slow cooking process that turns autumn leaves into the ultimate soil conditioner. The finished product absorbs moisture like a sponge while releasing nutrients gradually throughout growing seasons. The leaf decomposition process requires patience that modern agriculture has forgotten. Fresh fall leaves get piled in shady spots where forest fungi and bacteria can work their magic for 2 to 3 years. Unlike hot composting that happens in weeks, leaf mold develops slowly as specialized mushrooms and microorganisms break down tough leaf fibers into stable organic matter that improves soil for decades. Different tree leaves create different grades of finished mold. Oak leaves produce the richest, longest-lasting leaf mold because they contain natural preservatives that slow decomposition and create more stable organic matter. Maple leaves break down faster but create fluffier mold that improves soil drainage. Pine needles require special handling because their acids can harm some plants, but they create excellent mulch for acid-loving crops like blueberries. Oak leaves take their sweet time decomposing because they believe good things come to those who wait. Amish communities often establish leaf collection systems that harvest autumn gold from surrounding forests before it gets buried under snow. Families work together to rake massive leaf piles that get stored in wire enclosures or between fence posts where air can circulate while moisture levels stay consistent. The piles require occasional turning and watering during dry spells, but mostly they just need time to transform. The finished leaf mold works miracles on problem soils that dry out quickly or can't hold nutrients. Sandy ground that drains too fast suddenly retains moisture for weeks after leaf mold gets mixed in. Clay soil that sheds water like a roof starts absorbing rain when leaf mold opens up spaces between compacted particles. Plants growing in leaf mold-enriched soil develop stronger root systems and show better resistance to drought stress. Leaf mold is basically forest-aged soil conditioner that makes expensive peat moss look overpriced. Application rates depend on soil conditions and available supply. Vegetable gardens might receive 2-inch layers of leaf mold every year, while field crops get lighter applications spread over larger areas. The slow-release nature of leaf mold means farmers can't over-apply it like they might with chemical fertilizers. More leaf mold always equals better soil, limited only by how much free labor families want to invest in collecting autumn leaves. But what about farms on hillsides where all this good soil just washes away? There's an ancient solution that turns erosion problems into soil-building opportunities. Gravity never takes vacation from stealing fertile topsoil off sloping Amish farms, but strategically placed stone rows fight back by catching runaway dirt before it escapes down hillsides. These simple barriers work like speed bumps for flowing water, forcing runoff to slow down and drop the valuable soil particles it was trying to wash away. Over time, trapped soil builds up behind stone rows until former slopes become terraced fields. The engineering principles behind stone borders make sense to anyone who has watched water flow downhill. Fast-moving water carries soil particles along like a conveyor belt, but when that water hits obstacles and slows down, gravity takes over and heavy soil particles settle out. Stone rows create thousands of tiny dams across farm slopes, turning destructive runoff into controlled soil deposition that builds farmland instead of destroying it. Building effective stone borders requires more strategy than just piling rocks randomly across fields. The stones need to be sized and spaced to slow water without creating massive dams that might break during heavy rains. Amish farmers learn to use rocks about the size of footballs, placed close enough together to catch soil but far enough apart to let excess water escape safely. Stone borders are basically speed bumps for water that happen to build farmland as a side effect. The placement patterns follow natural water flow lines that become obvious during heavy rainstorms. Experienced farmers walk their slopes during spring runoff to see exactly where water wants to travel, then position stone barriers to intercept these natural drainage channels. Fighting against natural water flow creates problems, but working with gravity while slowing it down builds soil instead of losing it. Different types of stones work better for different situations. Flat field stones stack together naturally and create solid barriers that last for generations. Round river rocks need more careful placement but allow better water drainage during extreme weather events. Angular quarry stones lock together tightly but might be harder to find on farms located far from stone sources. Field stones are the overachievers of the rock world. They stack themselves and last forever. The soil building effects compound over years as trapped dirt accumulates behind stone barriers. Fields that lost inches of topsoil every year suddenly start gaining soil depth behind their stone guardians. Plants growing in these protected areas develop stronger root systems because they have deeper, richer soil to explore. Eventually, stone borders become buried under the soil they help trap, creating permanent terraces that prevent future erosion while supporting better crops. All these techniques work because they're based on something deeper than just farming methods, a completely different way of thinking about time and soil. Amish farming operates on a completely different clock than modern agriculture, where quarterly profit reports and annual loan payments drive most decisions. These communities think in generations instead of growing seasons, understanding that true soil health develops over decades of patient stewardship rather than quick fixes from expensive bottles. This long-term perspective allows them to invest in soil-building practices that might not pay off for years, but create lasting fertility that supports families for generations. The generational approach shows up in how Amish communities pass down both land and knowledge. Young farmers don't inherit depleted ground that needs immediate chemical life support. Instead, they receive fields that have been gradually improved by fathers and grandfathers who planted cover crops, built stone terraces, and composted barnyard waste for decades. Each generation adds to the soil bank account instead of withdrawing from it. This patient philosophy accepts that some fields might need years of healing before they produce their best crops. Modern farmers facing mortgage payments can't afford to let productive ground sit idle while cover crops rebuild soil structure. But Amish communities with multi-generational planning can dedicate portions of their farms to long-term soil therapy that eventually pays dividends for decades. Patience is the secret ingredient that modern farming forgot to add to the soil recipe. The faith component goes deeper than just religious beliefs. It represents trust in natural processes that work slowly but reliably. Chemical fertilizers promise instant results but often create dependency cycles that make soil less healthy over time. Amish farmers trust that compost, crop rotations, and animal manures will eventually restore soil fertility even when results take years to become obvious. Knowledge transfer happens through hands-on experience rather than textbooks or university extension courses. Grandfathers teach grandsons to read soil conditions by feeling dirt texture and smelling earth after rain. This practical education creates farmers who understand their specific fields intimately rather than relying on generic recommendations that might not fit local conditions. Soil testing equipment costs thousands of dollars, but experienced hands can read dirt for free. The accumulated wisdom of generations becomes the ultimate farming technology that can't be bought in stores or downloaded from the internet. This knowledge system builds soil health the same way it builds community, slowly, steadily, and with complete confidence that patient investment creates lasting abundance.